Welcome to the Dr. Mama Says podcast, where you will hear a variety of timeless tips on parenting and healthcare. Thank you so much for joining today, and now it's time to get on with the show.
Hey everyone, this is Dr. Burton, the host and creator of the Dr. Mama Says podcast. Thanks again for joining today. I truly appreciate it, and it remains an honor to have so many of you listening and tuning in to hear my thoughts. And hopefully you're gaining some useful tips about parenting and healthcare. So, screen time addiction. This remains a topic that's near and dear to me because I feel like I have a front row seat watching this epidemic occur. I've been a physician for 35 years, and I've interacted with families well before the digital age swallowed us all up. I've watched the dynamics of how people interact with each other, as well as how they interact with me. It used to be that the focus of families was on me and the information that I was sharing during that precious 15 to 20-minute office visit. Now, whether it's in my office or in the post-op room when I'm sharing how surgery on their child went, many, and yes, I mean many people are distracted by their electronic devices and can only give me part of their attention. Of course, I don't mean everyone. I thank those of you who do not have their phones or tablets out when the physician comes in. Seriously, it helps us to deliver our information better when we don't have to pause and wait for the swiping, clicking, or just checking seconds to pass. We want your attention. We want you to hear what we have to say. In several of my previous posts, of course, I've added links to these in the show notes. I have shared that there's a need to acknowledge that electronic device addiction is real, and I have highlighted the negative impact on parent education during an office visit. More importantly, I recently shared some of the severe, potentially catastrophic complications of excess screen time use. In creating my last episode on this topic, I was personally shocked at the severity of complications now being seen in kids with excessive screen time. Seriously. I mean, I knew it was bad. I just didn't know how bad. And if you don't know how bad it is, go back and check out my last episode. Anyway, increasing numbers of physicians are sounding the alarm about the impact of excessive screen time use on the development of young kids. In one of my physician online networks, an article was shared that made a big impact on many of us. It apparently has been being shared on social media for several years, but the original website's no longer active. Why? Well, because keeping an online presence takes a great deal of work. I love sharing information on blogs and podcasts, but let me tell you, it is no joke. It is extremely time-consuming, and my hat goes off to young physicians building their careers and families who are doing what I'm doing. I'm an empty nester in the final phase of my medical career, so I'm willing to continue to do this work, sharing important information on my own schedule. Sadly, many physicians have to stop maintaining websites or podcast hosting to focus on other aspects of their life. But there are still increasing numbers of physicians and healthcare providers who are available to continue to put out the information that you need to know. In the show notes, I added a link to a fellow pediatric physician who shared his thoughts about the silent tragedy of screen time addiction. And he made reference to a mental health practitioner who apparently also highlighted the work of another author. The original author, Dr. Marcus, is a psychiatrist who initially might have shared his concerns at a United Nations educational event. It's hard to tell exactly when the information was first presented to the public, but it's as timely now as it was then. The content of this important article has been copied, pasted, shared on many websites across the internet. And now I want to share it with you because it continues to speak the truth. The article is by psychiatrist Dr. Luis Marcos and is called A Silent Tragedy. I want to read the beginning portion to you now, and then you can go back to the show notes to read the full text. He begins like this. There's a silent tragedy unfolding today in our homes and concerns our most precious jewels, our children. Our children are in a devastating emotional state. In the last 15 years, researchers have given us increasingly alarming statistics on a sharp and steady increase in childhood mental illness that is now reaching epidemic proportions. Statistics do not lie. 1 in 5 children have mental health problems. A 43% increase in ADHD has been noted. A A 37% increase in adolescent depression has been noted, and there has been a 200% increase in the suicide rate in children aged 10 to 14. What is happening? What are we doing wrong? Today's children are being overstimulated and overgifted with material objects, but they are deprived of the fundamentals of a healthy childhood, such as emotionally available parents, clearly defined limits, responsibilities, balanced nutrition and adequate sleep, movement in general, but especially outdoors, creative play, social interaction, unstructured game opportunities, and boredom spaces. And that is the introduction of his post. It most definitely captures your attention, am I right? I just cannot tell you how loudly I was shouting while I was reading his post. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Parents need to heed these warnings. They are no longer hypothetical. The results are being seen daily, and it is never too late to reverse the trend. Dr. Marcos discusses many aspects of parenting changes that will help your child's development, such as giving them more independence by requiring them to carry their own backpacks or peel their own fruit when they are at the right age. We should not be encouraging them to depend on us for everything at all stages of their life. But I'm only focusing on the screen time addiction that's impacting our kids. Regardless of how old your child is, please consider making changes to your child's electronic device usage. We all receive information in different ways, and sometimes it's better understood when you know the source. Despite there being information all over the place on the internet, books, magazines, wherever, the fact that you're visiting my website or listening to this podcast, well, I guess that means that you trust my words. You know who I am and that I only seek to provide tips to as many people as I can. I believe that the essence of attacking the screen time addiction crisis starts first with addressing that it is present and then discussing what approach you want to take to deal with it. The time has passed to debate whether or not screen time addiction is a real thing. It is real, and it has consequences, real consequences. The question before you now, what are you going to do to protect your family? So now I want to share with you what I believe is the number one tip you need to begin the hard work of reducing or avoiding screen time addiction. And that is that parents need to establish clear family rules for electronic device use. Kids respond best when they understand your expectation. Do they know their bedtime? How about teenagers knowing what time you want them to come home at night? Parents know they must give clear curfew times to avoid teens coming home at 2 a.m. when you wanted them home by midnight. Well, the same applies to the use of electronics. Have you clearly established rules for when you do or do not want them to use the devices? And if you are in that small number of people who've done this, have you shared your rules with your kids? How about having your rules written down, your expectations written down and reviewed on some regular basis? Whatever time frame you want, monthly, quarterly, 1 or 2 times a year, whatever works for you. The key is good communication so that you can be on the same page as your kids and then, importantly, be able to enforce these known rules. You might decide to change the rules as your kids get older. That's great and expected, but the new rules should also be continued to be communicated to your kids. I believe that many parents have not specifically decided how they want their kids to use electronics. They're just going with the flow and reducing screen time on an as-needed basis without clear rhyme or reason. Is there a wonder why kids are surprised or upset by a change in their routines? Whether you follow the recommendations of the American Academy of Pediatrics, I posted a link to what their recommendations for screen time use is based on age. Whether you use theirs or you make up your own, it's really important that you just commit to whatever your belief is, write it down, and then share it with your kids. And of course the kids are going to want to revolt. It's normal and should be expected. I mean, who doesn't want to fight when you get new restrictions on something that you've already been doing? Or fight for something that you think everybody else in the world is doing? A child's job is to fight for what they want, and a parent's job is to enforce what they think is best for their kids. Parenting is not a democracy. Kids give input, but parents make the decision. Also, it's important for parents to model the behavior that they want to see in their kids. Yes, I mean parents need to walk the walk. We all know that kids are more impacted by our actions than by our words. So how does it impact your kids when you tell them to turn off a video game while you sit in front of the TV or you're mindlessly scrolling on your phone? That doesn't do anybody any good. It's really important for you to set healthy limits on your own electronic use, not only for your own sake, but as well as for your kids. Adults are not immune to some of the serious health consequences of excessive screen time use. Just saying. So here are a few suggestions that you could implement. Doesn't have to be all of them. You can choose one or two, whatever. Make something a part of your life. Every bit of reduced electronics is a good thing. So perhaps you can decide to not use electronic devices or phones during meals. This gives more opportunity to talk with each other. Don't use screens in the car. Yes, that means while you're driving down the road, you're actually having conversations. Everybody's locked in one spot. This is a good time to kind of catch up. What's everybody doing? Avoid screens in the bedroom. This is where our bodies need to go to unwind. Don't mindlessly watch TV while doing homework. I mean, you're not really focusing on either thing and you're just remaining distracted from everything. Don't use electronics during family fun nights or family outings. Yes, that means that there should be family fun nights or afternoons. If you don't have that, go ahead and get that started. Set up a time where the family just plays games, goes for walks, goes to the parks. No electronics. We need to cherish that time and bond with some of the most important people in our lives. Also, figure out some way to actually track screen time use. You'll be surprised at how much is used, and it's easier to decide that you need to reduce it once you see how much is used. Now, these are good tips that many people have already shared, but I now want to share with you two of my own personal favorite tips that I think everybody needs to start immediately. The first one, turn off all electronics when talking with a physician where you need to focus on the important information being shared. Just avoid the distractions. The visit is short and often chock full of information. I know kids get bored and need some type of distraction, but consider using devices only until the physician walks into the room or making a plan to only use non-electronic entertainment during physician visits. Kids will adjust to whatever rule you make and you consistently enforce. Just make it a habit, regardless of what's more convenient. Parenting is not convenient. And my second tip, the volume should always be turned off whenever your child uses a device. It is truly, exceptionally rude to force everyone around you to listen to your child's device. I mean, at what age would you consider that to be rude? Most people would hate for teens and adults to play their music out loud. Well, guess what? They also hate it when your toddler does it. If you must use a device with volume, begin using headphones that are made for kids of all ages. Go on over to Amazon and check it out. There are many to choose from. And finally, consider having an occasional digital detox for the whole family. Have a screen-free night once a week, once a month, whatever. Consider unplugging 1 weekend, a month, or a quarter. It could be good for everyone's physical and emotional health, as well as your family's relationship. All right, so this looks like a great place to stop. I hope I inspired you to look further into the impact screens can have on kids. If you like what you heard, I would love for you to share this episode with a friend or a family member. For now, I gotta go. Thanks for tuning in and hope you come back and check out another episode.
I truly want to thank you for spending your time listening to Dr. Mama Says, because without you, there would be no podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, please go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you go to listen to your podcast and consider leaving a 5-star rating. This will help gain the support needed to continue bringing new and exciting content. To review information presented in any episode, a summary of the show can always be found online at drmamasays.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you've not done so already. Hope you come back and listen again soon.